Hi, I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and in this video I'm going to show you how to assemble this cute tree frog applique pattern. Here's how to do it. Okay, this is the video showing how to assemble the tree frog if you are not using a light box. So I've got all of my pieces prepared, and let me show you what that means. So I printed the pattern onto the paper side of paper-backed fusible adhesive. I use Heat and Bond Light for all of my quilts. You can, if you don't want to print it onto the prepared sheets, you can also print it onto regular paper and then trace it onto Heat and Bond Light that you can buy by the yard, but I'm lazy and I don't like to trace, so I print it. I roughly cut around each piece and then I fused it to the back side of my fabric, and then I did a nice clean cut on the solid lines. All of these dotted lines are placement guides, so they are showing you where other applique pieces are going to sit on top of this piece. And so you want to transfer those to the fabric side of your piece. And you can do that by holding them up into a window, and the lines, those dark lines, will show through very clearly, and you can just transfer those markings. And I use a few different tools. I use chalk. If it'll show up, that's always my first choice. And it's very light on here, but I'm hoping that you can still see it. You can see it a little bit darker on this yellow piece and even darker on this black piece. If the fabric piece is too light for chalk, I will use a pencil. And if it is only if I am transferring a stitching line, which we don't have in this pattern, or a placement guide behind that is going to have a solid black fabric laid over it, then I will use just a black Sharpie. But otherwise, I always worry that the black line will show through my fabric, so I only use that if it's going to be solid black or black stitching over it. Okay, so this is a little bit of a different pattern because it also has a branch in the background. I really wanted to show the tree frog on a branch because to me, one of the essential things that makes a tree frog so cool are these toes that have these kind of like suction cup shapes on the end of them. And I really wanted to show those, and having a tree branch was the way to go. So just to show you, this is our placement guide. And the pattern has you cut a rectangle of fabric and then just turn the edges under a little bit and then lay that on here and stitch it down. So the way you can do that is just lay your pattern piece down on the block, lay the rectangle over it, lining it up with those lines, and then hold on to the rectangle and just slide this piece of paper out from between the two. The pattern has some photos that are showing how to do that. But one thing that I did want to show you is, because this is a little bit of an odd placement from what I usually have, I often will use a guide just to make sure that I have everything within my 10-inch. So this window is a 10-inch square window because that's the finished size of all of my blocks. So I'm just going to make sure that I get the finished frog and also the edges of my branch are within that window. But within there, I have lots of room to play. So you've got this guide to use to help you to assemble all of the pieces if you need it. But it is a little bit more. There's a lot of pieces in this one, and they're a little tricky to assemble. So here's how we put it together. I'm going to start with his head. I'm going to peel that backing off, and I'm just going to guess at where that's going to go. Everything is subject to being moved around. So then let's get his chin in there. And I had a line here that I transferred, and I'm going to just overlap this until it covers that line, so I have a good amount of overlap. I'm not going to worry about putting the eyes and the eyelids in there yet. I'm going to put the arms in and make sure that I'm getting this positioned where I want it on the block before I put in those smaller details. So we have one shorthand. This is piece number 1. And I am just going to tuck it behind his chin until that line is covered. And now, if you look at your guide, On my drawing, so if you want to make your block exactly like mine, those fingers fall entirely within the branch. And here they're coming out a little bit. So I'm going to just shift this whole thing just a little bit over. There, that looks pretty good. Now let's see what happens when we put arm number 2 in there. So this one comes out from under here. There, that is covered. That little line. And I have this arm, but on my guide, this arm is sitting almost entirely on that branch. So I am going to move this whole thing up a little bit and over. Let's see what that does. If you have a light box, all of this placement is really, really, really easy because you can use this guide underneath it and just line everything up on that. So now we're going to put this up here, and I think that did it. So now I've got the fingers are just coming very close to the edge of the branch, but not crossing it. And this arm is just about resting on that branch. I could even shift it over just a little bit there if I wanted to. All right, now comes the easy part. So we've got all of these eyes. So this is eye number 5, which is his left eye. And that's going to go pretty much like that, covering up those markings. And then the right eye, which is piece number 6. So I designed this guy to look kind of like an Australian tree frog that are these particular colors. Then we have some eyeballs, some pupils for his eyes. 7 goes there. And 8 goes, whoops, on this guy. Now you could leave it like this if you wanted to have just big round eyes like that, but I like giving them some eyelids. I just think it makes them look cuter. So we're going to add piece number 9 on the left side. We're just going to cover up the top of both pieces there. And then 10 is the other eyelid. There that goes. And now, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to double check with my little window and just make sure, since we were kind of eyeballing a lot of things, I just want to make sure, yep, that is going to fit beautifully in a finished block, and that's going to look super, super cool. All right, that is all layered down, so I'm going to very carefully, without bumping any of the pieces, carry this over to my ironing board, and I'm going to fuse everything in place. Just follow the instructions on whatever brand of fusible adhesive you use. And then I will take it to my sewing machine and do all of the outline stitching. And then I'll bring it back here and show you this finished tree frog and also 2 others that I made in different colors. All right, here is one finished tree frog. So tree frogs come in lots and lots and lots of different colors. I had so much fun doing the research for these, trying to look at different color combinations that I might want to make. And basically what I found out is you can make a tree frog almost any color you want, and it's going to look like some tree frog from some part of the world. So this one I actually did in very specific colors to look like a common tree frog in Australia. This is for a quilt that I'm working on that is all different Australian animals. But I did a couple of different versions also that I want to show you. So this one is a classic red-eyed tree frog like you see in the Amazon rainforest, and I did him in the colors that I've been working on for a quilt that is going to feature rainforest animals. And I did one other version. This one is a yellow tree frog, and I put him on a realistic kind of like just more muted background colors, but he is all different shades of yellow. One thing that I did notice, if you're making just any crazy colored tree frog that you want to, almost always the underside of the chin is lighter than the top of the head color. So whatever colors you make it, if you want to make it still look like a realistic tree frog, make that chin be a lighter color than the other colors that you use in the block. So that is 3 different versions of the Troy the Tree Frog applique pattern. You can get that at shinyhappyworld.com. I'm Wendy, and I will see you next time.